Hello there. Welcome to Critic Reviews. My name is Al, and today we're going to take a look at one of my favourite films, and the film that is the first letter of my logo, The Crow, released in 1994. So, where can I start with this film? Seminal, cult classic, born of tragedy, all of the above. The Crow is adapted from James O'Barr's graphic novel, which itself was a result of tragedy, written in the wake of the death of the author's fiancée in a car crash. The Crow is probably best known for another death, that of its lead actor, Brandon Lee, who was fatally shot after a dummy cartridge stuck in the barrel was missed by the armourer. Cartridge was then expelled when the gun was fired, and it shot Brandon in the abdomen. He would die in surgery 6 hours later. Ironically, he was also due to wed shortly after the film's completion. The movie was completed with the aid of some CG and a stand-in, and heavily edited in order to allow a finished product to be achieved, with entire subplots being removed, one of which, as I will discuss later, compromises the film heavily. This increased the budget from 15 million to 23 million, but the film would then go on to gross nearly 100 million at the box office. It has since gone on to become a bona fide cult classic and spawned 3 forgettable sequels, a TV series, and now the dreaded modern remake. So, what is so great about this film? Let's first of all talk about the overall plot, just in case you've somehow not managed to see it in the last 30 years. Rocker Eric Draven and his fiancée Shelley are murdered shortly before their wedding after resisting eviction. 1 year later, Eric is resurrected, guided by a supernatural crow, to take revenge upon his gang of murderers, and on his path to vengeance, helps other people that he encounters, like some kind of avenging angel. Now, one of the most enduring things about The Crow is the way the film looks. Director Alex Proyas shot the film almost entirely at night, and the driving rain is an almost constant presence in the film. Every environment is gloomy, dark and subdued. There is nothing bright or sunny in this film. Rainbows need not apply. It's oppressive, it's dark, it's unrelenting, and yet at its core the film contains a lot of heart. Each main character has their own tragedy to deal with. Brandon Lee's character, Eric Draven, loses the love of his life, Shelley, and indeed his own life, in a tragic murder. Officer Albrecht, a rare Ernie Hudson role, has a disintegrated marriage, and he lives alone, drinking and smoking heavily. Sarah, the young street urchin friend of Eric and Shelley, has a neglective drug addict mother, Darla, and she's left to roam the dangerous streets alone. All of these plot points are addressed as the film goes on, and the brutal violence on screen is juxtaposed against Draven's altruistic acts. Even though he's dead, or undead, Draven's humanity shines through the movie, the one bright point in the relentless darkness. The core of the film, however, is a love story, for that is what The Crow is. Eric and Shelley's eternal love is the driving force of the movie, and even though Shelley's time on screen is relatively brief, her presence is constantly felt. She is the driving force through the film. Eric's need to finish his business and be with her once more is his only reason for being, for continuing. Just to go off script for a second, what is it with modern Hollywood abandoning and refusing the love story? So many actresses or studios come out these days, and the first thing that they are quick to point out is that this film's not about a woman being in love with a man. It's about her seeking power, identity, about her becoming her own person, being true to herself. What's wrong with the love story? I agree that these other things can be fairly important, but why diminish the love story? Love stories are universal. Anybody can understand love, and anybody can identify with two people in love. I don't understand why Hollywood and modern Hollywood feels the need to deconstruct this universal constant. And it's one of the reasons why audiences, in my opinion, are failing to identify with a lot of films these days, because they're taking away the things that are universally identifiable and relatable, placing them with heavy-handed elements to push, as the critical drinker would say, the message. Anyway, The film is also greatly enhanced by the main bad guy, Top Dollar, superbly portrayed by Michael Wincott, who I feel boosts any film that he's in. He's just one of those great character actors, and he is going to crop up again in some of my other reviews, you can be sure of that. Long black hair, gravelly voice, deadpan delivery. Yeah, it's iconic. Brandon Lee also does a great job in my opinion, definitely portraying vulnerability, righteous vengeance, tenderness and aggression in various quantities. It's a poignant reminder that had his life not been cut short, he would likely had some career. I'm not talking Oscar winner here, but the dude definitely had talent. However, the film would be an empty shell without its beating rhythmic heart, and that is supplied both by Graham Revell's haunting evocative score and one of the best soundtracks ever committed to celluloid. Be It The Cure's Burn, played as Draven applies his iconic makeup. Nine Inch Nails' cover of Joy Division's Dead Souls roaring from the speakers as he races across the rooftops, or any of the other entries by the likes of Helmet, Pantera, Rage Against the Machine and Stone Temple Pilots, it punctuates the film perfectly. A wonderful fusion of rock and metal that lifts the film, cementing its iconic cult status. I have to also mention Inferno, the guitar solo, which Craven plays atop a rooftop before smashing his guitar in true rock and roll fashion. So, it's a perfect film, right? Well, no, not quite. There are some great turns here, but not all the acting is top draw, and the bad guys, I have to say, are pretty underdeveloped, being little more than bodies to be bumped off. They all have moments, but overall they're pretty cartoonish and superficial. The film is also heavily compromised. Not all the CGI work is smooth, and the scenes where they have improvised with a virtual actor are obvious, with the effect and animation not being particularly convincing. Some of the editing is also a little bit rough, and the deleted subplot, a special character called the Skull Cowboy who guides and advises Eric, means some moments don't flow as well as they could. Now, the Skull Cowboy was removed due to Brandon Lee's death. There was a lot of dialogue still to be filmed with that character, and although Brandon Lee had filmed the majority of his role, this one particular element could not be salvaged, so they ditched the character. The problem with this is the Skull Cowboy is a mentor figure for Eric Draven, and in fact he warns him to stay out of the affairs of the living, and says that if you mess in the affairs of the living, you will bleed, i.e. your supernatural invulnerability will not work. This is why the character's removal is quite important, because despite this warning, Eric Draven continues to try to help people. There's a deleted scene after Eric has taken out Funboy, where while Eric is trying to help Darla, Sarah's drug addict mother, Funboy ambushes him with a razor. And this is why Eric, after that scene, has tape around his abdomen, because he's been cut and wounded and not healed because he was messing in the affairs of the living at the time. The removal of the Skull Cowboy is also responsible for the conceit of the crow acting as an avatar of Draven, and if you wound the crow, Draven loses his powers. This was something that was put into the film to make up for the fact that they'd removed the Skull Cowboy figure. Despite this, the film still works. It's a miracle that they managed to complete it at all, considering Brandon Lee's death, and it's definitely worth watching. I do think it does compromise the film. However, it's one of those films that is really memorable. Although I've seen it 50 times now and know the dialogue word for word, and every moment in the movie, even newcomers will be impressed by the quotable dialogue and the action scenes, including a spectacular shootout that I think the Wachowskis were keenly eyeing. Let's not forget, Eric Draven's attire launched a legion of trenchcoat wearing goths a full 5 years before The Matrix would stake same claim. I should know, I was one of them. No, I don't think any photos survived, but I remember being introduced to the Crow by a good friend in the mid to late 90s, and I was blown away at the time. I'd never seen anything quite like it, and I got a trench coat shortly afterwards. Yeah, I was young. However, have you not seen this film, I'd strongly recommend that you check it out. It's custom built for a specific audience, the rock, metal, industrial kind of subculture, I suppose. But the film doesn't exclude anyone. It's violent, it's dark, but it has heart, and it's got a great love story at its core. I don't see the remake having the same profound message, and I'm not even going to credit the sequels with an individual mention, though I think maybe you should check out clips of the fourth one, particularly Dennis Hopper, because he's completely off his tits. He's doing some kind of really mad pimp impression, and it's hilarious. Anyway, that's the end of the review. Check it out if you haven't. I will leave you with this line from the film. buildings burn, people die, but real love is forever. This is Critic Reviews. Thank you. Hopefully I'll see you again soon.